Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here on, is this our first show of the new year? Yeah, it is, right? Yes. First show of 2022, Eric Lopez. Here we are. Remember back when like 20 people were like, oh, that'll happen in 2022. And we were like, God, that's like forever from now. Like, and all of a sudden, here we are.
Here we are, and off to a doozy of a start of a year, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, stop it.
Good to talk to you.
Oh, God. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Basketball, both men's and women's. And we're going to talk football. The transfer portal is heating up. By the way, we have our new transfer portal tracker on the site now, by the way, which we've been updating continuously. But we're going to start with basketball, men's basketball in particular. A little late getting the show out because we were all at the game last night, Wednesday night, against who the heck was it? Temple. I should probably play because I have a really short memory.
We probably should also introduce who we got on here right now.
And
that was,
Kyle Nash,
we were at the game. Yeah.
Yes, Kyle Nash, the student of the game who covers UCF basketball, joins us here in the first segment. And Kyle, how are you? Happy New Year.
To you gentlemen as well. I love the short memory reference. That is definitely something that comes up in my article writing up the Temple game. Bing! Thanks for the opportunity for the plug there, as well as the tracker. I wasn't introduced yet, so I couldn't officially bing that yet as well because no.
All right, well, you're here. You're covering basketball for us, and the last time we talked, wow, we were so happy about the Michigan game, 85-71 win over the Wolverines to end 2021. And since then, Sunday, 12-point loss at SMU and Moody Coliseum. Okay. Last night, the loss to Temple, 66-62 in a game where UCF had this thing in their grasp in the final minute and lost it. I can go over the stats from here to eternity, but Temple shot. Let's see, what did they shoot? 47% for the game, held UCF to 39. In addition, two nights in double figures. Darius Perry with 14 plus 4 assists and 3 rebounds, and Bakajong 12, 5 rebounds and 3 blocks. But UCF, particularly they actually shot better in the second half than the first half, but not all that much better. And kind of had a breakdown there in the final minutes, or rather in the final minute where they had the lead. First of all, you could say, let's just get this out of the way first, right? They shouldn't have let Temple hang around as long as they did. But nonetheless, it's still a conference game. Temple shorthanded, no head coach. Right, Aaron McKee was not there. They were missing a few key players, but let's give Temple some credit. They were hanging around. But UCF had a 62-58 lead after Brandon Mahan made his second consecutive three. He was scoreless up until that point.
Right.
Hit 2 consecutive threes late in the second half, in about a minute span to put UCF up 62-58 with 1:28 to go, and then all of a sudden, Temple starts hitting shots and UCF stops. Zach Hicks hits a 3 to cut it to 1. And then a shocking jump ball turnover a lot of fans were really upset about the call. I actually thought it was a good call, where Ty Freeman kind of got caught protecting, kind of putting himself in a fetal position with the ball. And I don't know who it was I think it was Nick Jourdain for Temple, kind of came in, put his hands on the ball, forced the held ball, and the possession arrow gave the ball to Temple. And then Damian Dunn hits a 3 to put Temple up 2 with 7 seconds to go. The late turnover by Darius Perry, who I don't know, I couldn't see if he dribbled it off his foot or what, but
in the post game he said he dribbled it off his
foot. Yeah, and bang, just like that, you've lost 2 straight games in conference. Let's start before we zoom out here, and Eric can talk about why everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, which he seems pretty good at. You give us your evaluation of what the heck happened here.
Well, it's one of those things where as I'm watching it, and because I'm new at covering basketball comparatively, I was kind of doubting, like, is it me or do they look kind of sluggish? I saw certain things that, a UCF team normally moves to the ball here. Normally this happens. I mean, okay, they gave up a few open 3-pointers in the corner. That's something that has kind of been an issue for them throughout the season. I wasn't going to panic over that. As it stood, Temple only made 6 for 20. It wasn't necessarily what sunk the ship. But when I'm seeing stats that back it, when they're fouling to the point where they're double bonus in the second half, which is kind of an indicator of sluggish movement. If you're fouling, it means you're not there. It means you're trying to stop a score because you didn't successfully defend it. And then Darius Perry himself, which credit to this young man coming out and talking to the media after this game with the poise that he did. I was thoroughly impressed, and he did an excellent job. I want to give him that credit. But when he himself said that we fouled too much and the defense was a little slow, I was then justified in what I was seeing, right? As a matter of fact, you mentioned the shooting not being quite as good in the first half there, Jeff. Part of what kept UCF to where they ended up with a 1-point lead at the half was that Temple themselves went into bonus, right? So there was a situation where they were taking advantage. They didn't get to the free throw line enough in the first half. They got the bonus to get them right. And as it stands, they only finished with 14 shots on the game where they had 10 at the half. That's one of the things we wanted to see improve from the SMU game. Right now, we got the assist situation worked out. There was a lot more motion on offense. Probably it should have been a few more shots that were hit. And listen, why I know that there's plenty from the echelon and upper echelon and standings perspective. That's difficult. On the stat sheet, there's a lot of good here, right? You had the depth you like to see, Zhang underneath, Perry in the perimeter with your double digits. That's the kind of varied scoring that UCF actually has, not 2 guys dominating the scoring as you saw in the Michigan game. It's the kind of thing where this is what UCF is offensively. 39% isn't a great percentage, but they've won with that kind of thing before against decent teams. It's that whole being sluggish on defense. Temple shooting 47% is insane. Coach Dawkins himself even commented that. And then they're also down Strickland and Vorster. That's along with the coach, as you mentioned, that's not something.
That's not even including Battle, who's been out for the year with a knee injury, who's an all-conference performer for Temple.
Yeah, right. Because he's been out so long, that ship for me kind of has sailed because they're kind of used to him being out. But that is a good point, Eric.
And he wasn't there for the first game in December anyway. So
right. Yeah, but listen, there was, like I said, there was a lot of good. And while CJ Walker only had 7 points, 9 rebounds. The big men did their job. You're noticing Jamil Reynolds getting in there too. They got a good rotation underneath, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Brandon May had a bad game. He didn't necessarily shoot that bad, but him arriving so late to the party, I wonder if that's an issue of the scheme they were playing against, or I don't know what people are pointing to that. I'm not so quick to say that that's a bad thing per se. But when it comes right down to it, defensively, the thing that jumps off the page is Temple got to the free throw line, 16 times and shot 47%. That, if they're getting that many easy looks or good shot choice, then something's wrong on defense, as we talked about.
Yeah, I think you were right about how the plot of the game, especially with the fouls early, put Temple, on the line a lot. I think Temple was in the bonus with like 14 minutes to go in the second half.
Yeah, and they ended up in double bonus before it was all over.
Right. So
12 fouls in the second half by my count.
All right. So the reaction obviously after this loss has been, oh my God, the season's over, which it's not. Okay. Now, let's establish some facts here. This is not a good loss. Okay. UCF right now stands at 9-4 overall, 1-2 in the conference, tied for 6th with Temple, by the way. That was Temple's first win in the conference season. Houston and SMU were 2-0. SMU's won 8 in a row, by the way.
Wow.
So let's give them some credit. This was a Temple team that I think I had it right here in on a tweet. So according to Ken Palm, Temple's ranking now is 128th. Not ideal. All right. But Eric, why is it that everyone is freaking out about this loss when we still have 14 conference games to go?
Because this goes down as the worst loss in the Johnny Dawkins era. That's why. This is a
disagree.
Loss.
Disagree.
Find me a worse loss. Find me a loss where you lose to a team that was shorthanded.
I'll tell you.
Head coach is probably only going to win 4. Which one?
I'll give you one. 2018-19, the year that UCF came within an eyelash of beating Duke, they lost to FAU, who was 162nd.
That was like 2 games into the season.
Home.
It's a
At home, they lost that game.
And that was 2 games into the season. Teams lose bad games early in the years. They figure themselves out. Not in January. Not to a short. No, it's not. No, it's not. See, that's a misconception. We're not early. Because here's the problem. We're not in a normal season anymore here. We don't know how many games are left in the season. We just lost a game postponed this Saturday.
Saturday's game with Tulsa has been postponed, not canceled, postponed.
But I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to reschedule games this year. The way the schedule is panned out, and this won't be the last time we're going to have this conversation about
we don't know that.
I'm pretty confident. Like, there's no way. Like, we're in, it's miserable. It's a miserable time in society in general, in the world. But anyway, nonetheless, not a great time to lose a bad game. This is like a golf tournament. You want to avoid, when you don't know what your rest of your season looks like, you can't avoid to have a terrible loss at home in a conference, in a year where the league is down. This league is 8th or 9th at best. And Temple is going to be bad. Like, they're going to be worse than that figure. Here's the problem. Just from that loss alone, UCF dropped from 48 to 64 in the net rankings. That is a massive drop. You just basically wiped out your Michigan win. That's what you just did with that. And the disturbing thing, like the SMU loss, SMU is good, to your point. Kendrick Davis is going to play at the next level. They're a top team. I'm not bothered by that, but there's a disturbing trend in the SMU game and the Temple game. This team does not close out halves well in these 2 games. Remember in the SMU game Sunday, they were up 7 with about 3 minutes to go in the first half. Kendrick Davis goes to the bench with 2 fouls. SMU ends the half on a 10-0 run to go up 3. Second, late in the last 5 minutes of the second half, SMU game, it was a 5-point game. Anybody's game. SMU pulls away, outscores them by 7. They win by 12. Temple game, you both were there. I believe, and you guys can correct me on this because I don't remember the clock situation, but I think there was about 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. UCF was up 8 late in the first half. Temple makes that run at the end of the half to cut it within 2, I believe. To go to the locker room, correct?
I mean, at one point, even the time you're talking about is correct, but at one point, even they were up by 11 in the second half earlier on in the period.
3.5 to go before halftime. UCF was up 30-22, and then Temple scored 7 in a row to close out the half.
Correct. And then in the second half, I think UCF also was starting to pull away and couldn't. Temple makes a run, goes up a couple of baskets, and then Mayhem hits a couple threes. You're up 4 with a minute, and you can't hold on. They're not closing halves well. That is so pivotal in college basketball.
Well, they were up 11 with 13. It was a 13. Yeah. It was an 11-point game with 13 minutes left.
Right.
That was about the time that Temple went into the bonus, by the way.
Right.
But it's a short-handed Temple team. You got to put them away. Put them away. Like, you're playing with fire by leaving them in the game. And the thing that's concerning is this team is who they are. They are inconsistent. This is who Brandon Mayhem is. Inconsistent. He could score 20, 25 points and a half against Michigan and score 0 for 38 minutes against Temple. Darius Perry could be inconsistent. In fact, Johnny Dawkins even acknowledged on the postgame on Wednesday saying, we need more consistency from the perimeter.
Need more consistency from my perimeter guys in general. I mean, just to have those guys, night in, night out, kind of have an idea of who they are, because, they can be, so good. And what we want to see, though, is we want to see that, on most nights. And tonight was one of those nights where, our perimeter players really, you didn't feel them out there until Brandon, made those shots at the end. And, our offense and our system is designed for those guys to thrive in it and to be a little more, aggressive and to make plays.
That's Johnny Dawkins talking post-game. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, no, and while all that's accurate, and obviously I'm not going to argue with the coach on that, let's keep in mind that a while back, Mahan not getting big numbers was more because the team had depth. I think where the problem's really coming into play is there's just moments where they're sluggish, where they weren't. Sure, shooting's always going to be inconsistent. We don't have guys that are necessarily known for being snipers. That's not this team. But at the end of the day, and Darius Perry said it himself, not Coach Dawkins said it. We all hear that. But Darius, when the point guard coach and the point guard are saying the same thing, it only adds the weight, right? So Perry mentions the energy. They need to find that, over the next week going into the Memphis game. And when I hear them saying that, that's when this inconsistency is really what comes into play. The one thing they've not been consistent on is playing defense. Eric, to your point about closing games, heck, we were having the conversation with Johnny Dawkins postgame about closing games at the beginning of the season. And it looks like they shed it when they staved off Jacksonville. Like this is how far back we're talking about. University of Jacksonville, who pulled an excellent 3-point shooting percentage out of the sky to keep a game closer than it should have been, but they closed out strong. What's the only other game you could think of they closed out big? Yeah, that Michigan thing. I know it was so great. I had trouble putting it into words, but name another game where they finished strong. Gentlemen, I cannot find it for you. I think
Miami. No, they didn't finish strong in the Miami game. They kind of let him back in at the end of that one. That's true.
Correct.
No, Miami let him come back, right?
Yeah.
That's the concern. That's a great point, Kyle. That's a great point. That's the thing that's concerning is I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll put one thing out there that I think is kind of the issue that I was seeing at times is, what did Coach Dawkins say at the very beginning of the season was the big key? And he's actually emphasized this during the season too. He said it was shot selection.
Yes.
Right? I think
Taylor Young told us that on the show.
And Taylor Young emphasized it too. I think these last 2 games, we've kind of ping-ponged back and forth a little bit. So in the SMU game, I thought that, and you brought this up, Eric, that shot selection was a problem because how many assists did UCF have as a team? 5. The whole game.
5.
Right? All right. So, and we had 2 guys who, in Mahan and Perry, who took a combined 30 of the 62 shots in that game. Last night, against Temple, I'm pulling up the box score right now. You had, Perry took 14, but you had 5 guys take 7 shots or more. Now, the thing that I was seeing was tentativeness on offense. All right, I think that they were so spooked by what happened against SMU, where your 2 alpha dogs were so decisive, and it didn't work out, that they were like, okay, work a little bit more on distributing the shots a little bit more evenly. So that's why you had, Isaiah had 7 shots, Mahan had 6, Walker with 8, Green with 9, Mbake with 7, and then Darius had 14. But they were trying so hard to do the right thing that nobody was decisive. And I think it happened throughout. Like, even Jameel Reynolds, who only attempted 4 shots, like, he would get some good looks underneath, I thought, when Zhang was on the bench with foul trouble. And he would get the ball in good position, but pump fake too many times. Like, go up there and shoot the ball, son. I'm
like, get up there,
it's
son.
like I think that was pervasive. I think they were trying too hard to do the opposite of what they did in the previous game against SMU, and the pendulum swung back the other way. So I think they still have yet to find that groove on offense where they're taking the right shots and they're going in. Am I wrong about this?
That's a good concept that you're following. One thing I can add that might confirm it a little, Jeff, is when I talked to him Tuesday before the game, we talked to Darren Green, we talked to Sheik Mbake Jean, and we talked to Coach. And all 3 of them cited the 5 assists not being UCF basketball. So we can tell clearly what the corporate message was in that particular piece. So,
and in this game, they had 23 baskets on 12 assists, which is a pretty good ratio, much better ratio than before. But still, here we are sitting with the same result, right?
Yeah, and when you look at individuals, Liz, I'm taking Zhang out of it because, the dude was 4 for 7 and went to the foul line twice.
Oh, he's been fantastic. He's been fantastic.
He's been the most consistent player on both ends of the floor.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to put him off on a little box, that doesn't really fall with that. But yeah, you look at the rest of the starters here, whether it be Perry, Mahan, Walker, or Green, that's not exactly what you want to see as an overall field goal percentage in general. And of the remaining players, Walker got to the free throw line 4 times and no one else. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing,
that's not a good stat.
They were, and in that second half against Michigan, what did we see? We saw decisive shot selection.
Oh, we saw
That's what happens when you're 8 for 8 from 3-point range in the second half. Like, when Brandon was open, he was taking the shot. When Darren was open, he was taking the shot. And I think we also have to give, we can say this is UCF's fault all we want. Let's give some credit to Temple because they played excellent hard-nosed defense and I was watching it at the floor level. They were switching extraordinarily well in that, especially in that second half. Their guards are annoying as hell on defense. And it was kind of like old school Temple ball. I think that they were playing with a little bit of fire under their rear end because they had guys out.
Sure.
And that's kind of we talked about this before the show, the sort of the psychology of athletics, right? When you're missing guys, it's like, kind of the remaining group is like, okay, we need to rally around each other. And I think they did it, to Temple's credit, they did a very good job of that. And they played like, I was telling somebody I was sitting next to on presser, I was like, Temple plays basketball like your classic Northeastern basketball team, right? Very hard-nosed on defense. They were trying to break UCF's defense down inside 15 feet constantly, and they did a very good job of that. And then that opened up the outside shooting for later in the game, as we unfortunately found out. But let's give Temple a little bit of credit too, because those guys are on scholarship also.
Yeah.
And
but again, if you close them out, we're not having this conversation. And again,
okay, but
everything
they also have to somewhat allow you to close them out, and they didn't do that.
And I think UCF helped, and I think that's the problem. You don't know what we're getting on a game to game, on half to half. I mean, look, I remember doing the night shift with Drew after the Michigan game, and to Drew's credit, I will give him credit. He said, look, I'm not going to get superly excited about this victory until I see more consistency from Brandon Mayhem. And that's the problem is that's what's so frustrating. That's why I think a lot of the fan base is frustrated, because we see the potential of this team, right? We see the potential of this team and when they could play at the highest level, but it's just not consistent. And I think, quite frankly, Drew's skeptical, and I have to be skeptical moving forward on, I don't trust this team to put it together for 10 games in a row. Why should I? There's
Man,
no evidence that they've ever done that.
All I know is that we've had this conversation year after year. We were saying the same things 3 years ago.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't. Here's the difference. In 19, you had a top 25 defense in the country. In fact, top 10, depending on which categories you were looking at. This defense is not as good as that. They're 79th in defense efficiency. They're not a dominant defense. They're an average to decent good defense. Offensively, that 19 team, you knew what you were getting from B.J. Taylor and Aubrey Dawkins. They knew their roles. I'm not sure this team knows their roles necessarily from the standpoint. For example, Isaiah Adams has just not been able to find a rhythm all year off the bench or starting. He hasn't been as good as last year. Brandon Mayhem comes and goes. Darius Perry comes and goes. Sometimes in basketball, depth is a problem because there's only one basketball. Doesn't matter. And sometimes you can have too much depth. And I wonder in this team, I don't know if these guys are comfortable on a game-to-game basis. I don't know what it is, but this team is not consistent. That's period. We have enough evidence now over 2 years, especially with Mayhem and Perry, who are your two seniors, who handle the ball a lot, are not consistent players, period.
Kyle, are we applying too much of the football fan mindset to basketball right now? Because Eric said something just now that kind of worries me a little bit. He's saying these players don't know their roles. It's January 6th. That happens.
You should have your roles. No,
the 19 team, they didn't understand their roles, I thought, until the last week of the season when they went into Houston and beat.
I disagree with that. No. They knew their team before that. I think that's way off base.
As much as I'd love to see a lightsaber duel here, gentlemen, there's aspects of both of you being correct. And here's what it is.
Giving yourself away there.
The roles, as it was advertised, even going back to Hoops Media Day, gentlemen, wasn't that the roles weren't defined. The roles given to us were flexibility, right? This team is so deep. I could change the starting five if I need to based on the opponent, says Coach Dawkins, right? Anybody remember that statement? Right? We weren't supposed to necessarily see a starting five that was the same starting five every night. And for a while, maybe Bakke wouldn't be in the starting five. Maybe
Isaiah started the Michigan game, remember?
There you go. Okay, right. Perfect. So with all of that in mind, a lack of definition to the roles could potentially set up a situation where they don't know what their roles are. But I think the problem stems from this. People started asking the question, can they do what they did in Michigan? That's the part that Drew got right. It's natural to ask that question. Here's where Drew has to put the pipe down. This team was not designed to be.
Wait, he's not even defending himself in this segment here.
No,
come on.
I defended. Listen, I'm doing a little of both. He's right from one aspect.
Right.
And the other part is where and I think you a little bit, maybe it's not so much you're hitting the pipe as you need some weed to relax. I don't know which it is, but the part that the problem, air quotes, with doing so good at the Michigan game is that they performed in a way that this team was not built to do. Who the hell relies on 8 and 8 for 3 and two guys?
No, teams don't shoot. And you did a great job recapping that, shooting the ball over 70%. I thought your recap of the Michigan game was perfect, and it was funny because I had people reach out to me. It's like, what is Kyle taught? Why isn't Kyle give this credit and this credit? I'm like, dude, let's not oversimplify this stuff. It's just a make or miss sport.
You can't rely on a Villanova second half all the time.
Right, every time.
An 85 Villanova second half, right?
Right, exactly. And I think you nailed it on the head. Here's the problem. Defensively, I want to mention this because Coach Dawkins mentioned this to me after the SMU game, and he brought this up again in the Temple game, and it cost him in that last two possessions. Double penetration. They're giving up too much penetration defensively, and then it allows the offense to shoot it, to kick it out, and that's something that they're having trouble with right now. They're not in front of the basketball. Their backcourt is not guarding as well, and as a result, even though you got some bigs inside, teams, Kendrick Davis, even Temple we saw, having success drive to the basket and either shoot the layup or kick it out for the three like the game winner. That's a problem with this defense. There's flaws here on this team. Can they fix it? Yeah. But can they be consistent? I don't know. And you look at their stretch now. They're 1-2 in the league. You're going to host Memphis, who I don't know what to expect from Memphis, but we know this. They're the most talented team in the league. We just don't know if they could put it together. You got two teams that probably need a therapist right now in UCF and Memphis. And then after that, you go to USF, which you have struggled to play the last couple of years. This could get away from you. You don't want to dig yourself in league play here. That's why this Temple loss is hurt. Can they do they have time to recover? Yes. But as Darius Perry said to you, Kyle, and the media afterwards, they need to know, they need to now understand, and Dawkins elaborated on this, they need to figure out who they are. Right. Who are they? Who do they want to be?
Well, the good thing is they have a week to do that because, like we said, the Tulsa game maybe that's a blessing in disguise. I don't know. Anytime we don't play Tulsa, I'm actually happy.
It could be
anything, by the way. But let's real quick before we go to break, I want to break down this Memphis game right now because the Tigers are 8-5. They lost 4 in a row at one point. Iowa State, Georgia, Ole Miss, Murray State. Got back on the horse, lost at Tulane by 1 point. But have kind of picked it up. They beat Tulsa the other night, 67-64. Right now, Memphis is and listen, during that 4-game stretch, I mean, it looked like it was getting away from Penny Hardaway in a big way. And we don't know really if they've tried to pull it together, but they are the number 61 scoring offense in the country. They're averaging 77 points a game. They can be had on defense. They're giving up 69.6 a game. That's 208th in the country. Right now, they protect the rim well. All right, 11th in the country in blocks, but they turn the ball over way too much. They're was it 273rd in turnover margin. Now, this team can be had in the backcourt, is what this looks like to me. So, what do they got to do? Kyle, what do you need? What do we need to see from this team at home on Wednesday the 12th if they want it? Because winning is the great deodorant, right? You beat this Memphis team, all of a sudden, hey, this thing got turned around real quick, right?
Hey, there's a reason why there's a deodorant out there called Sure. All right. It improves your confidence. All right. That's a thing. Okay. But, I'm glad you mentioned turnovers there, Jeff, because it reminded me there might actually be something from this game that the UCF team wants to emulate more than anything else. A mere 10 turnovers.
Yeah. They took care of the ball.
Yeah. And the only other time where they had fewer was, again, that Michigan game. Listen, like you can sell that on dang eBay at this point. It's maybe the best basketball you'll see in the Dawkins era, period. Who knows? It's a shame that Michigan turned around and lost to Rutgers to kind of muddy that water a little bit. But I
know, don't remind me. I watched that.
Let's not talk about that.
But,
I'm in the stage of grief right now, Kyle. Right? I was in the angry stage Wednesday night, and now I'm in the grief.
I feel like I got to be Aaron Rodgers in basketball season. Everyone relax.
Are you?
God, it is early February, man.
I like the group. I'm a basketball guy. We can make the tournament. I don't want to be just a football school. That's so shallow.
I agree too, but you can't apply the football team mindset to basketball.
No, but I'm not.
But losses. You're good. Are you going to get some good wins? They still have 2 games against Memphis to go. They still have 2 games against Houston to go. Those are the only 2 teams in the American that are higher than them in the net.
But here's the problem. Memphis, we'll see. You mentioned turnovers, Kyle. Memphis will press UCF. Penny Hardaway's going to press him. UCF had problems with that over the last couple of years against Memphis. And Houston can defend. It's not going to get easier for UCF. They're going to have to clean some of that up to have a shot to win some of those games.
But that's where your seniors come in, right, Kyle?
Yeah,
I mean, that's where
agreed.
Darius Perry. Yeah. Your senior point guard, this is his show. This is his show on Wednesday night.
I feel like this year with this team, and I can't speak to Memphis history like you guys. You're going to kick my butt knowing history every day of the week. I get that. But
don't sell yourself short.
But this year, I feel like when the press has been applied to UCF, the gaps left in the front court by the opposition are a bigger reward for UCF than the risk of having to stare through the press. They get through it, and then they get the ball for the 2. Okay, so they might have a few extra turnovers. It's a full court press. But I've come to find that their ability to score and find shot selection easier comes because the defense is more spread out. I mean, that's the physics of it. The danger of a press, if you don't have people that can run, with you is that you break it and you get an easier opportunity because of it. Right. And then remember, the whole thing that beating a press is to be able to run and move consistently without getting winded. That's what the depth is for. Darius Johnson has come in and made a difference. We've seen more Jameel Reynolds. You know, I feel like the press is something that could play to UCF hands if they continue to protect the ball as they have. Right. You certainly don't need one of those 19 turnover games to start creeping back in and have it spiral worse and give Eric more ammunition to, you know, be skeptical and worried. And there's plenty there. I'm not talking trash, Eric. I'm just saying it's the last thing they need is another.
I am
fair.
But I say all the above to say
if
this.
Dawkins is tipping. No.
All right. So UCF against Memphis. Wednesday.
Dawkins' tipping goes in. Damn it.
This game's on ESPN Plus.
Wait a minute.
Which one?
The Memphis game. Tulsa was
No,
supposed
I
to
think
be
Memphis
ESPN.
game? No, I don't think
But
so.
No, the Memphis game, it says right here on the schedule. Sorry, that's my dog Lucy in the background. Says ESPN.
Oh, it
Plus.
is, yeah.
That's a
So wait.
bummer.
I don't know what to tell you.
I hear Eric complaining about tip-ins when Bake's been doing what he's doing. Come on, man.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, if we would have had that tip in 2 years ago, man.
Listen, we got
3 years ago.
Listen, this is what I'm saying.
Still haven't gone over that.
We have Eric thinks like the rest of the schedule is going to get canceled.
The dog is even upset. The dog's mad at the loss. I could
she's
hear
mad
it.
at you because listen, we have 14 games to go. Okay? Everybody calm down. All right? They're going to figure this out. And if they don't, it happens, okay? But I don't think it's time to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. All right? I really don't.
Just hopefully they find they find an identity in the next week, because I don't think we know what the identity of this team is. I don't think they know what their identity is. As we'll talk about later in the show.
To figure that out. It takes a season to figure that out.
I don't agree with that. And we'll talk about another basketball team on campus that knows their identity. This team needs to find it.
A little bit later, though. Okay. Kyle Nash, covering UCF basketball for Black and Gold Banneret. Kyle, where can people reach out to you?
Honor, joy, and privilege, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Gentlemen, great time as always. And remember, until next time, I'm not going to put you in the corner because you have a good reason to be frustrated. But until next time, gentlemen, class dismissed.
Everybody calm down. Okay? Everybody just calm down for 1 freaking second. All right. When we get back, Andrew Gluchov is going to join us to talk some football. Kyle, you want to stick around for that too? Because I know you got some things that you made some good observations this week that I think might be quite helpful. And plus, I just want to see you and Andrew fight. So
you want to see what you two might look like at a younger age? Is that
yes? It? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Stick around. When we get back, we'll talk football. Wow. Transfer portal. The portal giveth and the portal taketh away. We'll talk with Drew about that in a second. Stick around. I'll be right back. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Kyle Nash is sticking around with us because he knows about football stuff, and so is Andrew Gluchov, who joins us now on Stat Boy Drew on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. A little off-season football roundtable, if you will, here to talk about the portal and how it giveth and how it taketh away, as we have seen this week. All right, so first of all, the portal giveth. Kobe Perry, senior defensive back from Austin Peay, the 2021 Ohio Valley Conference Defensive Player of the Year, is coming to UCF. KD McDaniel, outside linebacker out of Kentucky, 6'2", 250, big kid. He's coming to UCF. Terrence Lewis, 5-star recruit, number 1 linebacker in 2021, missed last year with a torn ACL, but he's coming to UCF from Maryland. Wow! Holy smokes, UCF is getting guys, right? The portal's great. Hold on a second. Tatum Bethune goes to Florida State. We talked about how, who did we have? We had, obviously, Dylan Gabriel, who initially chose UCLA, has now actually chosen Oklahoma because that's where Jeff Lebby is going. Okay, whatever. Titus Mokiao-Atimalala is also leaving via the portal. I wonder where he's going to go. So, as we said, the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. And I got into a debate with some UCF fans on Twitter who were saying that the portal has ruined college football. All right? That everything is ruined. It's terrible. There's no, quote, loyalty, end quote, anymore. Everything is, you can't connect with a team anymore. Everything's, guys. And I said this before, and I want to know what each of you guys think here. I think the portal is great. Okay? And I'll tell you why. We know exactly who is totally invested in the program, who wants to be at UCF. And that applies not just to UCF, but to every other school, okay? You don't have guys who would rather be somewhere else, but are having to play out the string because they have no other options. They have the options now. All of you guys who play, and this, by the way, does not just apply to sports. This applies to every collective endeavor there is. It is a lot easier to succeed when everyone buys in, right? We know who buys in, right? If you don't want to be here, if you don't think UCF is great, if you would rather be somewhere else, go somewhere else, right? Go find your happy, whatever that may be, all right? It's okay. Go. Give me 85 guys who want to be here. Am I wrong about this?
Well, I think you're wrong in the standpoint that
surprise.
It's a really breaking news. Breaking news here.
News flash. Old married couple disagrees.
I think the concern is that your sport has become a year-to-year sport now. It's no longer
a year-to-year sport.
No, it used to be you could build a team 2-3 years from now, and you look forward to a freshman. Now, if
really is that why the Power 5 schools are firing coaches left and right and giving them $20 million buyouts?
That's not good. Yeah, that's not good either. And I'm going to tell you, college football right now is in a collision. Right now, what it is, it's a collision. You have the one side like you that enjoys the transfer portal, likes the student athletes moving from place to place. You like the fact that players are opting out of bowl games. You want to expand the playoff. You want to get rid of the bowls. Then you have another side that doesn't want to get rid of bowl games, that probably either doesn't want to expand the playoff or they very little. They also want to keep everybody on the same team. I'm not saying one side is right or one side is not, but we've hit a collision here. We have hit a collision between two theories, the purest thought, and a great example is the Rose Bowl. Why does the Rose Bowl have so much leverage in college football? Because as Drew, you could speak to this, a lot of people in the Midwest really care about the Rose Bowl. They've grown up with it. And people like Kurt Herbstreit are offended when people skip the Rose Bowl.
Get over it.
Kurt's crazy. That's your opinion. But then there's the other opinion. So the sport eventually is going to have to meet somewhere in the middle. And I don't know if that's going to happen. As far as the portal, I'm fine with the portal as somebody who has dealt with the portal for since 2018, because Earth News to football fans, this has been going on before football. So get over it. But I will say this. The big issue with the portal is the tampering that goes on. People behind the scenes that convince a kid to leave when he really shouldn't leave. But hey, Sonny, I'm a greatest quarterback. I beat Ty Detmer 30 years ago. Why don't you leave? That guy's not good enough. I know what I'm talking about. And it's nonsense. Guys are leaving way too many times for the wrong reasons. There's about 1,000 players on the portal, and only 30% of them actually end up on a roster. We're seeing scholarships being thrown away and an education being thrown away, and that's not a good thing.
But whose choice is that?
Unfortunately, the parents are too involved in this. That's the problem. It's like this youth league amendment. Like, my son is the best ever. You're not treating my son well. I don't like how you're using him. Let's go. Let's go somewhere else.
I do agree with you on that to some extent.
Right.
But I think that you're also, by blaming it on the parents, you're denying the agency to the student athlete. Let's not forget, they're adults.
Good.
Okay?
So tell you what, that's fine. Then you know what? Caleb Williams, you talk to the media. Don't let your dad do the talking for you. When you bolt Oklahoma and you try to hold them hostage for a bigger NIL, hey, cool. Speak to the media. Don't let your dad do your talking. That's my issue. That's fine. I agree with you. Don't let your dad do the talking for you, or your mommy do the talking for you. If you're an adult, then you got to answer those questions when you leave. Just like professional athletes have to answer questions when they leave a franchise.
No, they don't. They don't have to answer anything. They can either say nothing or they can have their agent do it for them.
Like Antonio
they're not
Brown.
Required to say anything. Here's the cold hard truth. I don't think it's really a collision course so much as it's for the sport as general, as it really is just for the fans. The fans are the ones that have to reconcile this, that are struggling. It's the fans that are divided over the pro bowl games versus the anti-bowl games. So I think we need to clarify a little bit on that it's not really the sport that's in a collision course now. It's still in that reckoning stage. There's not
we're still in the chaos theory phase.
Yeah.
Like, and forgive me, Drew, but I just want to make this point.
Go ahead.
You talked about the 30% of guys who ended up not landing anywhere. I think that a lot of that is because, the portal is so new. Everyone thinks they can take advantage of it. Eventually, those guys, unfortunately, I'm not saying this is a good thing, they become the cautionary tales. I think over time, we're going to see fewer guys go into the portal for that reason.
We're still collecting data. Yeah. We're still in that data collecting phase.
Right. We're still in the agglomeration phase of this, right? So I'm sorry, Drew, go ahead.
Phase. It's never been collision. It's been correction.
Yeah.
Right. And this has been building up for a while. As Jeff says, you want people in your system that buy in and that want to be there. If you don't like a job, you go somewhere else. You find a new job. Now, there's no guarantee you land a new job, which is where the problem is with the amount of people in the portal and the high number of ones who never actually land anything. On the flip side, you add the NIL aspect. All these underground things that had already been happening have come to the surface. It's a lot more transparent now. This stuff with Texas A&M creating a conglomerate that's throwing it's being reported over $25 to $30 million worth of sponsorship money around. Hey, newsflash, that was already happening. Now we just know about it.
Right. Instead of under the table, it's over the table now.
Yeah, is it clean? Well, it's legal. It's and I remember I made a
Eric Dickerson, what's that new car you got over there?
Yeah, I made a comment once online, and a person laughed at me because they were talking about the Texas A&M thing. I said, you know what? And not a dime of that's coming from the school because they can't pay for it. That's when it becomes dirty. And with all that money being thrown around, the last thing a school like A&M would want to do is be involved with it. Because hey, it's being done for them. Why attract undue attention? You're starting to see Florida State and Florida starting to kind of start building this themselves. Yeah. They're starting to build sponsorship collectives. Maybe UCF needs to do the same thing, where it's not the school so much, but it's under the banner of the school, where private entities, private companies, and financial benefactors all pool together resources to help say, hey, you come to us, we'll get you a sponsorship gig that'll put some coin in your pocket. That's what it's going to come down to. I mean, Charlie Batch, the former NFL quarterback, came out today and basically said, hey, Caleb Williams, come to Eastern Michigan and my company will pay you $1 million for 1 year.
Yeah.
Charlie Batch off the top rope. I'll tell you. Unbelievable. Kyle,
So, yeah, I won't get to the collective part of it because that's something I don't think any of us necessarily planned for. But listen, where we're at, you heard me say correction and not collision. Where the problem really comes into play is where you have the other outside entities. And listen, I get the part where, you know, they're guys that are adults, they're making their own decisions theoretically, but there are also parties on their side that are misdirecting them, whether they have best intentions or not. Okay. I've said this before, maybe not necessarily on this air, but somewhere, that the biggest thing people have to be aware of is lessons are going to be learned here. Players are learning lessons in the form of that 30%. And we, the consumers, are starting to learn the lessons that they're forming collectives. And is this a direction we really want to go? But if the goal really was player mobility, this is probably one of the best ways you're going to get it. Drew, do you remember back in the Student of the Game podcast days what I would say about the SEC?
Oh, yeah, with the dollar signs and everything.
Oh, more specifically, it's the best college football money could buy. Well, now we just see it. You know,
well, we've
by the way,
seen it since the 1990s when they separated and created their own broadcast contract. They were always the ones kind of going forward on the money aspect.
Right. And the other thing too, like you talked about, like the collectives, like just thinking out loud here, like how different is that from a group of donors who get together and pool X million dollars to attract a coach?
It's no different.
So
like what's the difference?
When you pull the coach card here, here's where that gets difficult. Like there are coaches like the Kirk Ferentzes and
Jim Harbaugh.
Right. Guys who have, no, I'm not speaking of Jim Harbaugh yet. Like I'm talking about guys who are institutions in and of themselves.
Okay. Fair. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like no player is staying at a damn college for 10 years. That's a fact. Okay? They can't, even if they could.
We tried. You could try. I mean, I tried.
Well, I think you might still
have
got
4 years of eligibility.
Hey, he's a unicorn.
Yeah.
At this point, Kirk Ferentz is a unicorn.
Well, I mean, I get it. I'm speaking to, things that aren't necessarily occurrences. I would argue that a coach who has seen the success or are unicorns should be rewarded thus. And I think when we perceived this whole NIL situation, it would be the unicorns that would draw the money, the quarterbacks, the star players that would become thus. And star players on the various teams too. I'm not trying to cut out the other sports. I know there are more sports than football, et cetera, but that stars, generally speaking, or Olympians in some of the other sports, that take place at the university, and even crack, gender barriers, all that stuff. I think they would be ones more inclined to get the athletics. But even speaking as an offensive lineman, I never expected an entire O-lineman group to be sponsored by, I don't know, a furniture moving company or something like that.
Oh, it's perfect.
Right? So
all you can eat buffet.
I think that's the part we're still trying to account for, is we were looking for those unicorns that I'm now calling it, thanks to you, Drew, that were the true driving forces to a university's success and might deserve a reward for their loyalty and performance. Not literally every child walking in, or adult, not every college student walking in should be entitled to the NIL, in my opinion. You need to take some snaps and do something. You got to earn that.
Well, and I think that's why I think I've talked to a lot of coaches in various sports. I think they like the NIL because it's not up to you, right? It's up to how the player and the performer and marketing. Now, it's not necessarily the best player sometimes, but that's a whole other story. But, I spoke to a compliance person that works in the SEC and in the Big 12. You know what the 3 top most demanded sports for NIL has been? It's been football, men's basketball, and softball. And then gymnastics is 4th. Why is that? Because you can identify certain individuals, whether it be quarterback, football is the most popular sport, basketball, individuals, you can identify them, softball, you can identify a pitcher, you can identify that, you can see their face. Same thing with gymnastics. That's part of it. The one concern with the transport, and I think, Jeff, you remember this, I think Greg Lovelady told us this in a couple years back. What he didn't want is to this turn into a situation where certain programs become a farm system, quote unquote, for other programs. That, hey, you take the time to develop a player, and then when they're ready to go, here plucks in a major program and plucks them away for a couple of years. That was his concern. I don't think that's that's necessarily going to happen, because as we've seen, every program gets plucked. Oklahoma's been plucked. They've been raided, right?
Correct.
So I think we've learned that.
More on when coaching changes too.
Right.
That's a huge part of it. But Drew, you made a great point, and all of you have made great points on this segment too, by the way. Jeff, I agree with you. I think this will slow down, because that's happened in the other this was we have to be very
Stop the presses.
It will slow down. The thing that hurts football, it seems like it's a lot because it's got the biggest roster. People got to remember this, right? Like, I remember in after the softball season, people were flipping out because, like, oh my God, 8 players are in the portal. What's wrong with the program? That mindset has to stop. Just because players enter the portal does not mean you have an issue in your program. It just means the player wants to move on to play, have more playing time, or play for somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's the same applies in football. You might have 10, 15 guys enter the portal, but remember, there's 85 guys on a roster, so you're going to have a big number. The big thing that I agree with Drew, and I forget if we did it on Night Shift or on this podcast, Drew, was you want some dates. Some deadlines would help. Yeah. One of the things that kind of I think is right now the fans are struggling with, and I can understand this, is I think the transfer portal is like free agency, except in free agency, for the most part, when that player's contract is up. So you could prepare for that.
There's
so
a
like
free
if you're
agency
in Atlanta,
period.
Exactly. And so like if you're the Atlanta Braves fan, you know that Freddie Freeman's contract's coming up. Here we don't. A kid could pop in without blind. Like a lot of people were caught off guard by Tatum Bethune. It would be like if Kyle's 49ers, he's a George Kittle guy, and George Kittle, after the season ends, 2 days later announces, hey guys, guess what? I'm declaring to be a free agent. You're like, what? Wait a minute. Right. And I think that's where we're at right now in college football. I think the college football fan who has been used to having a kid be there 3 to 4 years is the last fan base that is struggling with this change. College, this has happened in college basketball already. So every other sport has gone through this already. This is football's turn now.
Well, here's one of the things that fans often fail to consider. Scholarships are on a 1-year basis.
Right.
They're renewed on an annual basis. You are always on a 1-year contract. That's the thing that college sports fans really don't notice because it's not talked about. Scholarships are singular.
But it's central to a player's perspective too, man. Wow, you kind of blew my mind with that. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at is we don't think about that. We think as the whole, you've been brought on scholarship, you're good to go. No. There's no guarantee that a UCF is going to renew the scholarship of a player.
Right.
Say something.
I'll give you a good example. Like we've seen, obviously we've seen some real contributors. Like let's just use UCF as an example. All right, we've seen some real contributors go, but let's take a look at. Okay, so for example, a guy like Kayvon Ahmad, who is a sophomore, 1 career catch in 17 games. All right. Devontae Dawson, who had 4 tackles last year, opted out in 2020. Caden Robinson had 1 catch for his career. It was for a touchdown. Justin Menard had 0 catches in 8 games as a wide receiver. In the past, and I saw this like in the 2 years that I worked in the athletic department, you do see this. Guys would be on scholarship, and then they would go away. And we wonder where they went. Well, you find out that, when they met with the coach after the season, they said, you know what? We're going to give your scholarship to someone else.
Yep.
All right. And then what happens? Well, what's your options? You can walk on, okay, quit, or go somewhere else. Now, there's a little bit more power in the player's back pocket. If a coach comes to you and says, hey, it's not working out, you can say you can turn around and go right to your Instagram account and say, I'm entering the portal. And then all of a sudden that gets headlines where before, when there was no portal and you just lost your scholarship, you just vanished into thin air and no one knew about it. So I'm not opposed to this. That's why I think there's a little perception gap here where we think, oh my God, everyone's moving around. No, there's about as much movement as there was happening before. We just didn't hear about it quite as much because now we have a tool by which we can hear about it. Go ahead, Kyle.
And to look at it from the truly Scrooge McDuck capitalist greedy sort of way, this gives the program all the license it could to pull a scholarship and reassign it to somebody, right? Oh, well, you have the portal, so, try your opportunities up elsewhere. Meanwhile, we're going to give your scholarship to this guy. I could very cynically call that a win-win concept.
Well, we've said the portal giveth, the portal taketh away.
Correct.
Last year, UCF benefited heavily from the portal. But this is actually, let's use that word again, correction. This is a correction. You're seeing a lot of players leave this year that did not leave last year. A number of them are newer players. Why? Because, especially first-year players, they all signed in almost all of them in December. The coaching change didn't happen till after that.
Right. A lot of those guys from that 21 class, they signed to play with Josh Heupel.
Right. And you get one free transfer.
Right.
You get one free transfer. If you transfer a second time, you have to sit out a year. That's the rule. Normally it was used to be the only, you transfer it all, you sit out a year. Now you get a freebie. Mm-hmm. So instead of just cashing it in immediately, okay, they tried a year, see how it went. Some redshirted, some played, and then it's like, oh, you know what? This new staff, it just isn't right for me. I'm going to go. This should have happened last year. They should never have signed. But because of the early signing period and when coaching changes happen, they're stuck. I'm actually not a fan of the early signing. I think that's actually causing more problems.
I agree with that.
The early signing period. Yep.
Eric, weren't you saying that, Eric or Drew, one of you guys weren't you saying that, like, there's some grumblings right now amongst the coaches that
there's grumblings
that they might do away with the early signing period.
Yeah, they might push it back to February, like it only.
That was the original. That was the normal signing day. Was in February.
That's the normal signing period.
I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, sure, it makes it harder for spring enrollees. Maybe make it like late January. Push it up a couple weeks. Kind of meet somewhere in the middle. It's still after the season's over. In January. January 15th is usually when the football year is officially over. Contracts end, of assistants and new ones kick in. So maybe somewhere a little bit after that, like a week or two after that, right before the beginning of the next month, would be a great time to have the signing day. The coaching changes happen. Players now have a chance to say, hey, I'm going to back off and I have an opportunity to look elsewhere because other schools can take advantage of that and vice versa. Oh, hey, that coach just signed with that school. I want to check out that school now. It can work both ways, but what we're seeing now is a correction of what should have happened last year happening now. And people are freaking out because everyone's leaving. But one, as you said, Jeff, it's a huge roster. It really isn't that big of a chunk. You lost some good caliber players like, Gabriel and Bethune. But I mean, good guys have also come in. You've had Armstrong come in. You've had Bryant come in. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, and it's the nature of the beast.
Kyle, you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am, because another aspect too. I know particular guys who have skin in the game that agree with you. Literally every coach in a pre-bowl game press conference of the 4 I was at agrees with you guys that doing away with the early signing period and having it go back to the way before would be preferable. They would be point blank.
They hate it.
Even including
the irony is they're the ones who wanted the early signing period to begin.
And they realize how bad it is.
Yeah, when they realized they were getting offered $10 million a year contracts in December, like, oh yeah, maybe I'll take it. I gotta go, and then they look bad. Yeah.
Or another example, you could be stuck in a press conference on signing day instead of with your team, as was the case with Coastal Carolina's Jamie Chadwell and those of that ilk, right? The ones that we're trying to get to jump up to the next level. If you're somebody who believes in the evolution of the G5, right?
It creates some awkward situations. I'll tell you that much. I mean, that's some awkward moments where you're supposed to be prepping for a bowl game, and and you're stuck having to do other stuff. I mean, granted, you have to wear multiple hats when you're a head coach. You're a part politician, you're a part handshaker and baby shaker.
I get the people who say, "Hey, you signed up for this."
I mean, that's part of the package.
Yeah,
and you have certain.
That's why you make the big bucks.
But now that they've gotten a little taste of that water from that fountain, they realize it doesn't taste so good.
All right, so this will be. I want to wrap this up by pulling it back to UCF one more. All right, so we've seen so far 4 guys, and by the way, we got some news today. Actually, the last couple days, a couple guys are coming back for that extra year of eligibility. Isaiah Bowser, number 1, tremendous for UCF. Sam Jackson's coming back. Anthony Montalvo's coming back on the defensive line, so that's good. 4 guys in the portal. We had 1 guy who we thought was coming in, kind of reverse field a little bit. So, but we're looking at, as far as outgoing guys from last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13, 14 guys have left. All right. You think we're going to see another 10 more? Drew, I want to start with you. You think we're going to see another 10 more pop in by Groundhog's Day?
By Groundhog Day?
Via the portal to kind of fill in those spots that were emptied out?
I don't think it'll be 10. I don't think it'll be that high. I think they may get to like 6 or 7, 8 at the most.
Okay.
I think they'll try maybe get 1 or 2 signees. And they'll just remember, this is a correctional hit, so it's a little bit bigger than what it should be. Heck, there were players before this season even started that left, like Anthony Hunley left before the season even started.
Yeah.
He's not even on the list because of how early he jumped.
Yeah.
So this is a correctional thing. So UCF's going to take a net loss on this one. They had a net gain last year, and it'll balance out. So I don't think they'll get to 10. They'd like to, but you're not going to get guys just to get guys. You want people that buy into your program, that can contribute something. They're not just going to, if you want people just to fill in spaces, you do a tryout and you get some walk-ons. You don't waste the scholarships. You save those for next year when you're going to go just as aggressive back into the portal, because there's no limit in how many players you sign from the portal. There's only limits on how many freshmen you bring in. So if you've got the extra scholarships, you can use them. And if you don't, you just carry it over and you've got more to work with next year. Obviously that creates depth issues, but you know what? It's just part of the problem. And it's part of the struggles that schools have when they change coaching regimes. Is you're going to have personnel issues. That's why they usually give 3 years as a time of, is this coach working or not?
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff there that Drew says is good. I think that the upper range of an estimate is 10. I think it's possible. I'm with Drew. It's hard for me to swallow that he'll get there, but listen, give Coach Malzahn credit. There's a lot of exclamations on the back of that boom on the Twitter account. You know what I'm saying? He's recruiting as his hair is like his hair was on fire was the campaign last year. He's now got a full off season to work with. It's very interesting to observe. Now, that all being said, will he have 10 by February? I'm with Drew. That's a hint tall, but with the guys he brought in last year, granted, first year, it's a lot more fire, a lot more freshness. That's a factor. I think that's why he doesn't get to 10, but he'll flirt with it.
Maybe not by February, maybe by the summer after we get through spring. Some guys, if guys on other rosters decide, you know what, I'm going the wrong way through a revolving door, they enter the port. I mean, remember UCF picked up a few transfer guys over the summer.
Correct.
That were really key. Hey, lest we forget, I know it was almost 5 years ago now, but Mike Hughes was a late transfer in August, right?
Well,
Eric,
grad transfers is possible.
Yeah. Eric, I'll leave the last word with you.
Well, I agree with Drew there, but I'm going to just point 2 things to remember about the portal. Jeff, you made a great point. This goes 2 ways. We talk about players leaving all the time, but you made a great point. Coaches, I've asked coaches, the reason they like it is they can clean the slate. If there's players they don't believe fits their system or don't believe is in the long-term plans, they'll tell the player, hey, We just don't think that in the long run, this is best for you. I'll help you go somewhere else. That happens behind the closed doors. To a great point by you. I think people have to remember that. And I also think we got to remember relationships in recruiting still matter even afterwards. Look at Tatum Bethune. Why did he go to Florida State? Randy Shannon, the defensive coordinator. Who recruited Tatum to UCF? Randy Shannon. They have a relationship that goes way back. Dylan Gabriel. In a unique path.
UCF, Jeff Lebby.
He's friends with Jeff Lebby. There's a relationships, and that matters. And Gus knows that he's one of the best in there. By the way, shout out to Tatum Bethune. Nobody should criticize him for leaving. The guy left it on the field every time he played here. He could do what he wants. It makes sense. You got to use common sense sometimes in these things. He wants to play for a coach that he knows for a long time. I have no problems with him. Salute to him. He helped this football team. He left it on the field. That's all you can ask as a fan and as a teammate is, did you leave it on the field? He did. So salute to him, by the way.
Yeah, I'd like to point
out
that
to see a player of that level go. Obviously,
I'd like to point out that Terrence Lewis, who's one of the transfers in, had Auburn as the front runner before Gus Malzahn was fired. And who was the guy who recruited him? Travis Williams.
Yep.
Just saying.
Right. And that's why UCF will pick up some terms. Yeah, that's the relationships, man.
Your hair's on fire.
All right. Well, we continue to monitor it. If you go to blackandgoldbanneret.com and you go to our homepage, you will see in the sort of towards the right-hand side of our sort of header, the 2021-22 UCF Football Transfer Portal Tracker. Myself, Drew, and Bryson Turner will be monitoring that throughout the year. Anytime something updates, we're going to put it up there. You may as well just bookmark it because I'm going to be updating the tracker as much as we possibly can. Just shout out to Drew, who is like, Drew told me like I should put out like like Liam Neeson as Zeus.
No, that was Kyle. That was Kyle.
Oh, that was Kyle. I thought it was you.
No,
Drew.
Sir, that was not me.
Oh, really? I've got the two of you arguing over this now. Fantastic.
No, it wasn't me, but I'll gladly take credit for it.
Yeah,
with my ego,
if I did it, I would tell you. But no, release
update
the
tracker.
I think it was Murph.
It might have been Murph, but since he's not allowed to be named on the show, we'll say it was me.
As the managing editor of this thing, I say that we are allowed to say Brian Murphy's name whenever the hell we want.
Boom.
So,
listen,
it has been decreed.
Wow.
All right, Drew, we can hit you up at StatBoyDrew on Twitter, Kyle VSOTG on Twitter. Gentlemen, thank you for your insight and for not screaming at each other quite to the extent of me and Eric this last segment.
By the way, Jeff, you're in trouble now. Brian's going to Von Wagner you now for mentioning, just so you know. Just like Von Wagner went after the crowd in NXT, he's going to go after you now. Shout out to Von Wagner, Cal Bloom. Yeah,
bring it on.
There you go.
Don't make me go all Harlan on him, okay?
And not talk.
when we come back, we've got Bryson Turner who's going to join us to talk a little UCF women's hoops. They got a victory on the road to start conference play at Tulane. This team just picks up right where they leave off, man. Unbelievable. So we'll talk about that. We'll hear from Coach Abe in a little bit as well. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this. Welcome back. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez back with you here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, and joining me now, Bryson Turner, to talk about some UCF women's basketball. While Eric was kvetching about the men's team, this women's team for UCF, it just continues to steamroll people. Eric, you wrote they had 18 days off because of COVID postponements and cancellations. So they opened conference play in New Orleans at Tulane against a team that has given them fits in the past. And wouldn't you know it, just like they usually do, they figure out something in the third quarter. The defense flips on, and once again, they hold another opponent under 50 points. 54-47 was the final. And this is what I liked about this, Eric, and Bryson. I want to get you in on this too, but Diamond Battles, okay? She has the license to shoot. Last night she was 2 for 14. And still this team pulls it together and gets the win. Alicia Lewis, 5 of 6, 2 for 3 for three-point range, 13 points. You said in your article on the site she was very aggressive, and when she's aggressive, that's when this team is at their best on offense. But and then also a milestone last night, Masani Kaba scored her 1,000th career point. So congrats to Mas. But
20th player to ever do that.
That's right. But I think it's a really encouraging sign for this team when your best player has a terrible night and you figure out how to win anyway with that defense, Eric.
No doubt. And that's the thing. This team has an identity. We spent a lot of time earlier in the show about the men's and what's their identity. This team, we know what their identity is. They are defense first. Jeff, we did this last year. We wrote the article. They were number 1 in the country in points allowed last season. Yeah. This year, they're number 2, giving up 48 points a game. They held Tulane 30 points below their average. Held them to 27% from the field. As Coach Abe said after the game.
17 for 6.
That was just shooting.
3 was Tulane from the field.
And this is the 8th time that they allowed they prevented a team from going over 50 points.
Right.
That is their calling card. And as Coach Abe said after the game, defense was the key to victory.
A lot of resilience. I mean, obviously holding this team to 47 points is big. Our defense, was really good down the stretch, especially in the third quarter. We got some steals and tips and got some layups and got some transition buckets. So I think defensively was the key to the game.
That was Coach Abe right after the game. But this defense is legit. But to bring up Alicia Lewis, Jeff, you and I have talked about her for over a year, came over from Syracuse. The coaches get on her because she's too unselfish. She sometimes passes to him, doesn't shoot enough because she's the best shooter on the team when she shoots. She was 5 of 6, very efficient, aggressive. If she plays offense like this, she filled the box score up. 5 assists, 13 points, 4 boards, 3 steals. If she plays that aggressive on the offensive end, to be that and take some of the load off Diamond Battles and take the load off Tay Sanders, they are a different team. I think they can win the league that way. She's that good. And they really passed the ball. 18 assists as a team, second most for the season. They know who they are, Jeff. That's why they're successful. They know who they are, and they have the chemistry, and they play to their identity.
I have to disagree with you a little bit there, Eric, because I don't know about like Alicia Lewis needing to be more aggressive because, I mean, you look at her stats and she is nailing practically every opportunity. In my opinion, this seems like a case of good shot selection, not necessarily shot selection. And I think that's the big strong point that Alicia
Well, I
Lewis
just like
has.
the fact the key is she's shooting the ball. And Jeff, you know this. There's been times where she'll go 0 for 2 in a game, 1 for 2.
Yeah.
To beat South Florida, and that's what we're talking about. The big picture here is South Florida and UCF. They're headed for a collision here. To win the league, which is their goal. If Alicia can give them that offense, Diamond get them some scoring. They're more of a balanced offense team. But Alicia's their best perimeter shooter. She could explode at a moment's notice. She just has to stay aggressive and not be passive. That's kind of what I mean. She doesn't have to do it every game, but she has to pick her spots, and she's doing a good job of that this year and did it in Tulane.
There are 2 players on the roster who are shooting 35% or better from three-point range right now. One of them is Diamond Battles. The other is Alicia Lewis. So, and we know what happens when teams key on Diamond, as, by the way, Tulane did last night. So what do? You got to find some other scoring threat from the outside. And, we know that Coach Abe loves to pound the ball inside, and that's her calling card, right? I mean, it's Masani Kaba. Last night it was Destiny Thomas as well. We saw a little bit of Shania Mertens as well last night. But in order for that to work, you got to at least present the threat of outside shooting. It's just like the running game the passing game only works if you have the threat, a legit threat to run. Not even that you even run the ball that well. You just have to present the threat to run. And it's the same thing in basketball.
Bingo.
Your inside works when you have at least the credible threat of shooting outside, and that's what works. So, Bryson, let me turn it over to you here. This schedule, as it shapes out for UCF right now, they're at 9-2. They're at ECU on Saturday, and then this stretch coming up: Houston and South Florida Tuesday and next Sunday. This is the key early part of the early season stretch, right? Because there's no doubt they have that game against South Florida penciled in on the calendar, but they can't look too far ahead right now because what are we looking at right now in terms of everybody else we see in front of them?
Well, we're looking at I think the big thing is that UCF just needs to make sure that their defense holds. Again, that is their identity. But I think the other thing is that obviously these other teams, like they tried to do with Battle, they're going to scheme against that. And so one thing I really noticed is that the offense started off a little pretty sluggish in the first half, which I can understand a little bit. They've been off for 18 days, so I can understand being a little rusty. But what really saved the team this time is offensive rebounding. And I think that offensive rebounding is going to be a huge key for this team in this sort of scenarios, because that is what kept the game close very early on. I believe halftime statistics, I posted those while I was live tweeting the game on the Black and Gold Banneret Twitter account, and UCF had double the offensive rebounds that Tulane did, and that was why the game was the way it was. I mean, when Diamond Battles goes 2 for 14, I mean, you're going to need some offensive rebounds in order to make up for that. And they did that in the first quarter. Now, Tulane did gain ground in the rebounding total in the second half, but that was when the UCF offense finally got going, and Tay Sanders and Alicia Lewis did their thing and ended up getting the game. Also in the fourth quarter, the team did a lot better job of getting to the free throw line, and that's something that they definitely need to make sure they try to do on a more consistent basis. They got to the free throw line. UCF got to the free throw line 10 times in the fourth quarter alone. In the entire game, Tulane went to the free throw line, had 11 free throws the whole game. So I think they were aggressive. They were aggressive in the glass. Destiny Thomas had 11 boards. Kaba, that's their bread and butter. They go to East Carolina. Can't avoid a trap there, because then you got Houston. Jeff, you know their coach very well. They were just on the outside, missing in the NCAAs last year. Ronald Huey. That'll be a big home game Tuesday. And then South Florida, obviously the big one on Sunday the 16th that everybody circled. So. Yeah, I would keep an eye on that I would keep an eye on that SMU game too, because they're starting off conference play pretty well. The other thing too is, I'm looking at the net, guys, and right now UCF is the top AAC team in the net at 33. Actually dropped 2 spots. South Florida biting at their heels at 37. Then we got a gap before we hit Houston, who is at 71, right? 71. 71. Now they're 8-5, but they've won 5 games in a row. So Eric, when you now ECU, that should be a win for UCF on Saturday, hands down. They got to take care of business in Greenville. They take care of business in Greenville. You got this Houston team who, they just won at Wichita. That's not an easy place to play. They won at Florida State. That was a key win for them. They also won at home against Arizona State. This is the Houston game kind of worries me a little bit, Eric, right? Because you don't want to. Well, they always play well. They know each other well. Yeah. And you can't look too far ahead. No. I mean, they played 3 times last year. Remember, they were in the semis. Yep. Houston, presents a unique challenge because they shoot the ball a lot from the perimeter 3-point line. UCF's going to guard that well. And Houston circled this game since last year. This was the team that knocked them out of the conference tournament. This is the team that probably knocked them out of having a chance to make the NCAA tournament. So that Huey's going to have them ready to go. That'll be a big game. And you always worry about, you've got that South Florida game on Sunday. Don't overlook. The good news is this team's a veteran team. I don't expect that. But you're right that they got to be. That'll be a nail biter. Would not surprise me if that Houston game's a 1 or 2 possession game, because I think Houston will be ready for them. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to see
what we have coming up. These games are all on ESPN, except the South Florida game next. Well, we're going to preview that next week, but that game's not going to be on ESPNU. But ESPN Plus on Saturday, 1 p.m. Remember, it was the Temple game that was supposed to be on Sunday that was postponed. That was supposed to be on ESPNU as well. No makeup date has been announced. Those two teams are scheduled to play again not until February 19th. That's a Saturday. And that's the third to last game of the regular season. So again, I don't know what they're going to do with some of these postponements that we've seen. I imagine they're going to try to make them up. I wonder if we're Eric. I wonder if we're going to see a situation like we did during the COVID season. Remember, UCF played Memphis twice back to back at Memphis. It's kind. I don't like seeing that, but I wonder if that might be one of the options that they're looking at. Right?
Maybe. I think they're just going to end up going by win percentage. That's my gut feeling here. I think, and I definitely don't think forfeits will be in play here. I think there's too much backlash on that. I think they might do what you said.
Out, didn't they?
Back to backs,
the rules.
Yeah, they changed their mind. After hey, maybe this was not a good idea to put the forfeit rule in. I think this could be decided by win percentage. I really do. It could come down to that. We'll see. Time to tell. We'll see what they do.
Again? Oh, great. All right. Bryson, I wanted to check in on a couple other things for you. Tennis, right around the corner. So our spring sports are getting ready to start, and both the tennis teams are getting a pretty nice little head start in the rankings, aren't they?
Oh, yes. So the men's team is picking right back up where they left off at the end of last spring. They're back at number 11. They finished ranked number 11 in the ITA Top 25 Coaches poll at the end of last season, and they start at number 11 this season. This time with Trey Hildebrand leading the charge with the graduation of Gabriel DeCamps, and they start the spring season. They have a quote unquote fall match against Miami this weekend, but the spring season officially starts with a match against number 8 ranked Georgia. And then the very next week on Monday, January 17th, they take on Georgia. And then after that, Saturday, the January 22nd, they take on number 1 Florida. So right away, UCF men's tennis is going to be having some marquee matches to start off the year. And then the women's team is also starting fairly well. They slide one spot down from their number 11 ranking from the end of last season to a tie for number 12 with Georgia Tech. That said, still a top 15 ranking, and they're also the best in the state. So that's certainly nice to see.
Now, I want to talk about the men's team real quick with this sort of in tennis, they call it the dual match season, which is dual teams, right? So, but they're playing this Miami invite starting Friday through Sunday, and it's not just UCF. Obviously, they're playing Miami, but they're also playing Texas, who's number 3 in the country, and Georgia, who's number 8 at this invite. So we're going to find out, real quick, and let's give some credit to John Roddick here, man. He is throwing the gauntlet at his players right off the bat with this 3-day event against 3 of the top teams in the country, no?
Oh, yeah.
It's a good way to warm up there, boy.
Yeah. Throwing yourself into the deep end of the pool in Coral Gables. Go ahead, Bryson.
I would agree with that. I think you got to start off right. I mean, for one, I think this is a very sound strategy to have to play another quote unquote one more fall scheduled matchup in Miami, because you got to prep yourself after being off for Christmas and New Year's, and then you're going to start off your season on January 17th against a top 10 ranked team, and then go to Gainesville and play the top-ranked team a short time later. So getting this warm-up in with Miami, that's a good call right there.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I think they'll learn a lot, and they'll get them ready to go for the season. So before you know it, tennis season's around the corner. The Australian Open's a couple of weeks away. So I'll be like last night.
Unless you know that Djokovic.
Unless you get your visa, yeah, we don't have time to get into all that, but yeah, that's a whole other sideshow there. Looking forward to college tennis getting going though.
I'm very interested to see who Trey Hildebrand's going to do doubles with, because he's a part of 2 ranked duos with his partner from last season, Bogdan Pavel, but he also got ranked with Leighton Cronhay as well. So I'm very interested to see how that doubles matchup is going to work out this season.
Well, we may get a shot at seeing that this coming weekend at that Miami invite against Georgia and Miami and Texas. So, all right, Bryson, where can people follow you? Because when the spring sports start firing up a little bit more consistently toward the end of this month, you're going to be following them pretty tightly. So how can people follow you?
You can find me on my Twitter at it's Bryson Turner. I've also been doing a lot of the quote retweets following the announcements by the senior players announcing their return: Isaiah Bowser, Samuel Jackson, and Anthony Montalvo, while this podcast was being recorded earlier on. So and congratulations on those guys coming back. And you can just follow me there at it's Bryson Turner on Twitter.
And also thanks to you for keeping us honest on the transfer portal tracker that we have on blackandgoldbanneret.com as well.
We could have had a player named Booby. I mean, I feel so sad about that. I love nicknames. We have Flash Robinson. We could have had Booby Curry, Jeff.
You're sad about that.
Anyway. It's just sad for like a moment.
You're not the one who has to screen, who would have had to screen that at 45,000 people multiple times on a Saturday. Okay, I'm just saying. All right.
Hey,
anyway,
it'd be hilarious. The student section would love it.
Yeah. I can smell the Schadenfreude from here. Anyway, make sure you follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can follow. By the way, thanks to Kyle and Drew. You can follow Kyle at the SOTG for the student of the game. You can follow Drew at Statboy Drew. And thanks, of course, to you, Eric, at Eric Lopez Elo. And you can follow me at Jeff_Sharon on Twitter. Follow us collectively at Black and Gold Banneret at UCF Banneret _SBN. Follow us there, UCF Banneret _SBN. Also, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. If you don't subscribe to our podcast, make sure you do on either Android or Apple devices. If you do subscribe to our podcast, we appreciate you very much. Make sure you leave us a rating, comment, and let us know how we are doing. That'll do it for us here on the Black and Gold Banneret. For Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner, Kyle Nash, Andrew Gluchov, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the weekend. We will catch you next week.